Good evening, and welcome to the regular City Council meeting of Monday, February 11th, 2019. Can we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Condit.
Here.
Councilmember Durossette.
Here.
Vice Mayor Ryno.
Here.
Councilmember Kline is absent, and Mayor Vierra.
Here. Next, we will have the invocation by Loren Gregory from the Victory Assembly of God, and then please stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Heavenly Father, we come before you once again and ask you for wisdom and grace, Lord, as we meet about the people's business. Just help us, Lord, to be of one mind and one heart and to work hard for our people. In your holy name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have one presentation this evening. It's Black History Month ASES After School Program Poster Collaboration. Embriat.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council staff, and community members. I stand before you today to kick off February's Black History Month. The celebration of Black History Month began in 1926, initiated by Carter G. Woodson, a noted African-American historian, scholar, educator, and publisher. It became a month-long celebration in 1976. The month of February was chosen to coincide with the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. In honor of the Black History Month, the Recreation Division worked with the ASES after-school program to create the collaborative poster that's in front of you. Students from May Hensley, Sam Vaughn, and Patricia K. Beaver each had a hand in coloring a square when they contributed to the large-scale historical Black leaders mosaic art piece. I'd like to thank Amy Hamill and the Ceres Unified School District ACES students for doing such a fantastic job on this project. In fact, we have some of those students here tonight visiting, so if they could come up, we can give them a round of applause. Thank you, guys. Can I shake your hand? Thank you for doing such a... Stand over there and we'll get a picture. Oh. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to citizens' communication to the council on matters not included on the agenda. While the City Council welcomes and encourages participation in City Council meetings, adopted rules allow no more than 5 minutes for expression of non-agenda items. Matters under the jurisdiction of the City Council and not on the posted agenda may be addressed by the general public. However, California law prohibits the City Council from taking action on any matter which is not on the posted agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the City Council. Citizens are entitled to address the City Council on any agenda item subject to the 5-minute provision. At this time, I do have one speaker card. I think it's Henrietta, is it Grazier? If you want to come forth and to the podium and...
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Henrietta Grazer, and I live at the Parks Complex, Homeowners Association adjacent to May Hensley Junior High. And I'm here to report one case of street garbage dumping that I witnessed. And I have all the email correspondence, telephone calls between board members, Liberty Property Management, and the Ceres Police Department. And just basically, I'm just going to go through this one case. I emailed on Tuesday, August the 28th at 9:30 a.m. to board members and to Liberty Property Management. Yesterday evening, which would have been August the 27th. At about 6 p.m., I was coming in the Parkway gate. A Mexican male was pushing a four-wheel furniture mover that had a sofa on it. He was planning to go out the gate I was coming through. I stopped halfway through the gate, asking him where he was taking the sofa. He said to the street, and he said he had every right to dump it there. I replied I did not think so and asked him where he lived. He refused any information about himself. He was combative and aggressive towards me. It was a good thing at that time in the evening. There were a lot of people coming and going at that time. He accused me of harassment, and he did take his cell phone, and he said he was going to call the Ceres police. He made a phone call, but I don't think he called the police because it was much too quick. I drove my car inside the gate and parked inside the gate, watched him dump the sofa at the curb. This was his second trip, as he added to what he had already dumped, also a similar-looking sofa item. He returned through the gate, either knowing the code or someone gave him access. I followed him to his vehicle, which was parked at the back of the Parkway Street across from 2700 Parkway parking area. He put the moving cart in back of his pickup and drove off, heading towards Hatch. I walked back to my car, went home and called the Ceres police and gave them all the information as to what had occurred. The ID info: young Mexican male, approximately 5'7", wearing green t-shirt with Lucky, L-U-C-K-Y, large letters written on front, driving an older Ford Ranger pickup, green in color, license number 5-Zebra-00460. About 7:30 p.m., a police officer came to my house, Brian Peterson, and we talked. He said the pickup belongs to someone in Modesto and that he would contact me again when he had more to say about it. Maybe we'll have some success in this, and I signed that. On Monday, September 3rd, which was 1 week, it has been 1 week today that these sofas were dumped. This is an email I sent to Officer Brian Peterson. I asked, how are you proceeding in finding the person responsible? If we can be of any help, you can count on it. There are 4 other board members who all agree we want this dumping on the street stopped. Please give me a call at your convenience. On the same day, Monday, September 3rd, at 4:15 p.m., Officer Peterson emailed to me, I apologize. I am playing phone tag with the responsible. I just got on day shift 2 days ago, and I'm transitioning. I should have an answer within the next 2 days. However, I don't know how successful I will be with a concrete answer of how we can stop this. On September the 10th, at 2:49 a.m., I emailed Brian Peterson, Officer Peterson. It's 2 weeks now since first dumping. Now there is more added, and a second pile at the north gate. There was also a car, an old Buick, that was put out there with the front driver's side wheel removed, and it was sitting on a bumper jack. And I mentioned that to him, and actually the officers came the next day and took that away. That was definitely a hazard because there's probably hundreds of children that walk that street to and from the junior high school every day. And on September 10th,
Ms. Grazier, can I ask you to kind of finish up? You've gotten to the 5-minute point.
I'll finish up. And after 2 weeks, not much had happened. So a few days later, Officer Peterson came by and told me that the father at the house in Modesto said that on the day of the incident, his son had borrowed his pickup and was driving it. Since he lived in Modesto, it was out of his jurisdiction, and there was nothing he could do about it. He gave me a piece of paper, it's right here, with code enforcement officer's name and number, Mr. Alvarez. He said I could call him and have the 2 piles of garbage hauled away. I later called Mr. Alvarez, and we talked about this matter. He said that there was most certainly something that can be done in this case, and that is to issue a citation to that Modesto address and the person responsible. I did not hear back from him, and so I don't know what was done, if anything. And I did try several times to contact him, but I was not successful. So I have no idea if anything was done on this matter or not. But we are going to continue to be persistent about it because, quite frankly, I'm new to living in a city, and I can't believe all the garbage around the streets in this city.
Yeah, we
Pathetic.
have made some attempts to get the perpetrators that are doing this. I know there's been a couple of instances in that location where we have actually spoken with the people that have been dumping there. I even suggested at our last goal setting that perhaps we should rediscuss whether we want bulky item pickup or maybe that should be something that is phased out. So I just want you to know we understand that it's a problem and we're taking the steps to address it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the council on a non-agenda item? And before I leave this topic, could someone make sure that we just stay in touch? I have her contact information here. Just keep her in the loop.
Yes.
Thank you.
She's given me the dates of September. A few months ago.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else? Please come forth and state your name for the record.
My name is Omar Jackson, and I wanted to ask about parking for big rigs. I own a trucking company myself, and our problem is no one wants to see them, but they're here, and they're not going anywhere. And we're just trying to figure out, is there anywhere, any vacant land or any land that we can use to maybe put something together for the truckers in the community, because there are a lot of them here. And currently, myself and a lot of people in my neighborhood, I live right over here off Silver Oak Lane, and pretty much everybody in my neighborhood either owns trucks or drives them, and we're all fighting for spots over at Clausen Trucking. So he's kind enough to allow us to park on his land, but it's limited. And I spoke to one of the other council members last week, and I guess there was some discussion with the council members or past discussions where it's like nobody wants to have them out on Front Street, like where it would mess with the ambiance of the city or whatever. But it's in Modesto, but I'm just kind of looking at land. I see there's a big piece of land right there on Yosemite and McClure, and it's pretty big and it's up for lease, and it's a good way to make some money and kind of cure the problem, because we're kind of stuck. Everybody tell us what we can't do, but no one is telling us what we can do. So I live here, I own multiple rigs, I don't have anywhere to park them, and I'm not the only one in that situation.
Okay. Are we aware of any, this is the first I've heard of this, but are we aware of any options for their parking?
Sounds like a business opportunity to me. Unfortunately for the city, that's not a business that we're good at, and not something the city would likely be entertained. I have heard that concern from other truckers. As you know, we get complaints on a regular basis about trucks parked on our streets and locations, and those signs of no parking chase folks around. We've indicated, and Mr. Westbrook and I have had numerous conversations with business owners who are looking to solve that problem. There's a number of those conversations around the valley that I'm aware of. Most recently, we've had conversations with other businesses, but they don't seem to go anywhere. But from a city perspective, we don't have any land that would fit that criteria, so it really is something that the private industry is better suited to fix.
So I mean, even though it's a problem in the city with parking and everything, you guys still feel like it's not something that the city would want to address or try to help?
I look at the council for direction on that item, but for our workload and creating a site that a city-controlled parking lot for big rigs, again, that's not something we're good at. And I would not recommend expending staff resources on that, but council, if you wanted us to go down that path, that'd be your direction. It obviously need to be an agenda item before we could take any action.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not aware of any large parcels that the city owns that we could do something with, and I'm not sure we could get the public to buy a parcel, so to speak. I mean, I understand the dilemma that you have, and if there's anything that we can do to help. It's just we're kind of in between the middle where, you know, you can't park the big rigs in the residential subdivisions, and I applaud you for coming here and saying, hey, can you help me out? I need somewhere. And I guess we're open to suggestions, but I think as Mr. Wells has indicated, I don't think we have the means to be able to do that. And hopefully there's somebody that's listening that might say, hey, there's a business opportunity. I have a vacant parcel that I could do something on. Ideally, and I'm going to say this, it's probably easier to get something like that done through the county than it is the city. Okay. But because if you're dealing with us in our jurisdiction, we're going to require that they pave it or have some kind of concrete or asphalt. Definitely. As opposed to just gravel, which you might be able to do in the county. So I might suggest that, if we know of anybody or there's any opportunities, I'll mention it to some people to let them know there could be an opportunity. And
I'm sure I can get people in the city to get behind it.
Okay.
What
I'm just out of curiosity, what does somebody like yourself have to pay per evening or per week for something like that?
Well, right now I'm paying $75 per month, which is not much at all, which is actually pretty nice of Mr. Clausen down there, but he only has so much land, and
Gotcha.
from what I hear, he's not able to upgrade it.
Gotcha.
I guess the city said he couldn't upgrade it, add lights, couldn't pave it, he can't do anything to the land, or they'll take it from him or something like that. That's what I'm hearing. So My thing is we have a big trucking community, huge. And I mean, from the belt you're wearing to the Q-tips you clean your ears with, it comes in on trucks. So they're not going anywhere. So it's like somebody needs to, address the problem.
If you could get the city clerk your contact information, I have a few people that I know that are entrepreneurs in the city, and I'll pass along your information, and maybe there's something that they can work out with you.
Oh, yeah. All right. I appreciate that.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the council on a non-agenda item? Okay. With that, we will move on to appointments to boards and commissions. We have none. Conflict of interest declaration. Is there anyone on the council that would like to declare a conflict of interest on any of the consent calendar items or one new business item? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar are considered routine in nature and will be enacted by a single motion unless otherwise requested by an individual council member or public for special consideration. Otherwise, the recommendation of staff will be accepted and acted upon by roll call vote. At this time, is there anyone on the council that would like a consent calendar item pulled for further discussion? Okay, is there anyone in the audience? All right, hearing none, I'll bring it back to the council for direction.
Move to approve 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, 6, 7, 8.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we have the roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Condit?
Aye.
Councilmember Durossette?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ryno?
Yes.
And Mayor Vierra?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0-1.
Thank you. We have no unfinished business this evening, no public hearing, and we have one new business item. Resolution number 2019-13, approving the mid-year budget amendment for fiscal year 2018-2019. Ms. Dean? Or Mr. Wells?
Joint effort here. Ms. Dean did all of the work and put the staff report and all that information together, and kind of tag team, and I put the presentation together. So we'll cover that this evening. As we mentioned on Friday at the mid-year or at the goal-setting meeting, for the most part, general rule, the mid-year budget amendment, we're in pretty good shape in terms of how our budget's looking for fiscal year 18-19. So as you know, we're a little over halfway completed. And so here's the comparison to the last time we saw these numbers in June with the budget approval. You see relatively the same. The expenditures have increased slightly as reflect primarily related to the adjustments for the MOUs and the negotiations being completed. That's the bulk of the changes that are reflected there in the mid-year budget amendment. And again, stop me at any time if you have any questions as we move forward. So as I mentioned, as we're wrapping up the fiscal year 17-18 audit, staff is currently reviewing the draft of that document in its final form, expected to bring that most likely to the first meeting in March for council's approval of the audit from 17-18. But the numbers that are built in that I've shown you are pretty close to being finalized once our staff has finished the review of the auditor's work. So for the recommended changes that we have for fiscal year 18-19 at the mid-year, on the revenue side, as you know, we've got 3 development agreements related to cannabis. One of those, PCF, continues to do very well and has exceeded the minimum and has hit the cap each month. So as a result, we've reflected that received revenue for that increased revenue. Then in terms of the expenditures, those items are highlighted in the staff report and then listed there below. The additional funding for the Time Clock Plus system, the Lions Club donation, recognizing that, animal control, updating the budget to reflect the actual adopted budget from animal control. When we adopted our budget, their budget hadn't been adopted yet, so there was an update for that final number. And then the overtime for the fire department, water conservation staff, and then the final reallocation of the Lower River Bluff project to fully fund that project. So with any questions on those or any more detail, again, those are all pretty well delineated in the staff report. Then to kind of where we stand today, highlighted there in yellow, fiscal year 18-19, projected to hit the 18% as stated by the council. All in all, big picture, budget's on track. We do anticipate to beat that 18%. Obviously, there's always something that can go wrong. We highlighted a few of those concerns on Friday at the goal setting. The RDA process, and there's some challenges there. We did complete all the negotiations, so those are good news. There are 2 FLSA lawsuits that are still pending. One is near complete, so we've got pretty good ideas of those numbers. And then really for consideration this evening is the resolution to approve the mid-year. And the last step, really just as we look forward to the next budget year, we highlighted those again with the budget goal setting, or sorry, the budget workshop that was set by council for May 16th. And that will be the first time council looks at the draft budget for fiscal year 19-20. So with that, I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions of staff?
I have just a couple. So when I looked at all the different, we have line by line, and I looked at those for the different departments. I noticed that there were quite a few that had expended more than 100% through January 31st, but yet the only one that I really see that we're making any transfers is for the fire OT. And if I go back to when I worked for the city, if I remember right, it's not necessarily that they've expended more than their 100%, because at the end of the year it all balances out based on what their total expenditure approval was. Is that correct, Ms. Dean? For their entire department.
Yes, the auditors look at their department as a whole, and we're not required to manage line by line. We do keep in mind their overall budget throughout the year, and if they get close to exceeding it, then they get warnings from us to stop spending. For the most part, we haven't had any issues with departments going over budget as a whole, and the departments that have some of those higher expenditures have salary savings, particularly PD and fire. And because positions were budgeted for and not filled right away in the beginning of the fiscal year, they have salary savings that can be moved down by the city manager to cover those expenses if necessary.
But in the case of the fire OT, they don't have enough savings in their overall budget to cover it.
No,
expenditures?
no, they had a little over $131,000 in salary savings, but I anticipate they'll need an additional $70,000 on top of that $131,000, so a little about $200,000 more for their remaining of the fiscal year for their overtime.
Thank you. And then this would be for you, Mr. Wells. Are we anticipating, now that I think we're pretty close to being staffed in fire, that we will not continue to have such overtime?
Well, 3 positions were being filled with overtime, but until recently we've got the academy started for 2, and one, that last position is being, there will always be overtime in the fire department. It's a 24/7 operation. Overtime, just like the police department, is pretty much guaranteed that there's overtime. Will that be reduced? Absolutely. Those 3 positions being filled and being at full staff, that will reduce over time. However, as Ms. Dean has pointed out, you know, that still, what that points out as the salary savings not being enough is that we weren't and we haven't been budgeting enough for the fire department overtime. Mr. Wise and I had a conversation as of today discussing kind of the plan going forward and getting a better handle on the controls for that going forward. So that is something that we'll be looking at as part of this year's budget.
Because
18.
if I remember when we had prior to Chief Smith coming on board, we had a problem with overtime in the police department. It looks like that's kind of been brought more into line, or that they haven't expended all of their money in their other accounts, so they're able to cover it.
Part of both, actually. And what PD did when Chief Smith came online was change that staffing from on the patrol side of things, from filling the minimum to maximums. There wasn't a minimum. When Chief Smith came in play, we had four individuals on a shift. The minimum staffing is 3, so that significantly impacted the overtime of the police department by basically allowing a flexible position.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, I'll open up for the public. Does anyone want to comment on this item? Okay, I'll bring it back to the council. Yeah, there is a resolution for direction.
Well, I think we have to answer the question about the cannabis. Do you want that? Is that addressed?
It's in the resolution. Unless you wanted to make a change, the resolution includes the revenue allocation. Unless you wanted to change and recognize basically an increase to the projection for the rest of the year, I will say that we did receive a payment today of the maximum amount for the month of February.
So based on what we have in front of us, is that the conservative amount or the absolute maximum?
Conservative amount, correct? Yeah.
Yes, it is the conservative amount of $900,000 instead of $1.2 million.
Okay, I'm good with the conservative amount.
So you make a motion?
Oh, yes, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2019-13.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we have the roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Condit?
Aye.
Councilmember Durossette?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ryno?
Yes.
And Mayor Vierra?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0-1.
Okay, council member referrals. Is there anyone on the council that would like to have an item placed on a future agenda? The one that, and I know we talked about it at the goal setting, but I didn't remember what we ended up. Can we have the discussion about the bulky item pickup?
We actually met with Bertolotti. It's interesting that came up on Friday. Staff, myself, met with Bertolotti on Thursday to discuss some options that we've seen in other communities on changes to the bulky items. So we have a follow-up meeting scheduled with them in March with some ideas. So if you give me time, if I'd prefer to get that meeting with Bertolotti scheduled, we've vetted some ideas with them that we feel might help. So if that's okay, we could reschedule that for the second meeting in March, and we should have a better idea from Bertolotti on some ideas. Because they're our partner in this whole arrangement, trying to find ways to help with both the illegal dumping and the bulky item conversation. So we've met with them a couple times, gave them some ideas last week, and we're optimistic that they can help us with some solutions to both of these challenges.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else?
I have a clarification on the goal-setting meeting, too. When I brought up the suggestion that we have a code enforcement, kind of a roundup meeting where you involve the community, and then maybe we focus on one area that has been having some code enforcement issues, and then Councilmember Condit piggybacked and asked about creating a beautification committee, and you assigned him that. But my question is, we didn't get to talk about it. Last month, I brought up the idea of an adopt-a-park.
What?
Adopt-a-park.
Okay.
And we didn't get to talk about that at goal setting. Is that going to be under the beautification committee as well? I mean, we didn't talk specifically. We were talking about code enforcement. I mean, it seems to me that would be where it could be, but I'm just asking for clarification that it doesn't get forgotten about.
My expectation at the end of the goal setting was that we would be bringing that back as a separate discussion item.
That would be great.
And I would like to include the Adopt a Park in the beautification task force. So I do think those two compare.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Before we do it, reports, I have nothing to report. Vice Mayor Ryno?
I have nothing either.
I have nothing, Mayor.
Councilmember Condit?
Yes, I was happy to attend the Ceres Chamber ribbon cutting at Fresh Fork. It's a great place to eat if you haven't been there already. And I'm happy to have the business here in Ceres, as I'm sure all of you do as well. I want to thank my colleagues for being there in attendance, as well as city staff. I also attended the Artist Spotlight event that was hosted at the Community Center. Staff did a wonderful job putting this event on. Also, I hosted office hours these last 2 Saturdays, and will continue my office hours here at the Community Center every Saturday between 12 and 2. So I hope to see you out there.
Okay. Ms. Dean?
I would like to thank the council for approving that Deputy Finance Director position. I'll be bothering Bettina now to get it recruited. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Tom?
Nothing, Mayor.
Mr. Wells?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder to the council, I will be attending the League of California City Manager Conference this week in the terrible city of San Diego. It's a terrible place to have to visit. I'll be there this week. Tom will be the acting CM in my absence. Just a reminder that next Monday is a holiday on the 18th, and then we will have a Measure H meeting next Wednesday, the 20th.
Okay. Tom? No. Mr. Smith? Mr. Collins? Mr. Wise? Okay. Ms. McCoy? Supervisor DeMartini?
I have nothing tonight, Mayor, but I did. Very well done. Extremely well done.
Great, thank you. Okay, with that, we will look. I didn't miss anybody, did I? I think I got everyone. Okay, we will now move to closed session where we have conference with legal counsel, initiation of litigation. We have one case, and then after that, we will adjourn to our Monday meeting of February 25th at 6 p.m. Thank you.